The Battle of Fandane-Thiouthioune, also known as the Battle of Somb or the Battle of Somb-Tioutioune, occurred on 18 July 1867. It was a religious war between the Serer people and the Muslim Marabouts of the 19th century in Senegal and the Gambia. But it also had a political and economic dimension to it, vendetta and empire building. Fandane-Thiouthioune and Somb were part of the pre-colonial Serer Kingdom of Sine, now part of independent Senegal. Background to Battle of Fandane-Thiouthioune. Prior to this battle, Mabadiak Helbar, the leader of the Muslim Marabouts, was influenced by the king of Cayor and Baol, Damultain Lat Dior Ngone, acute Latijop, to launch an jihad in the Sine. Damultain Lat Dior Ngone, acute latter, had a grudge against the king of Sine, Maada Senegal and Thiouthiogne Diouf, after he was defeated by the French at the Battle of Loro and exiled from his kingdom. Damultain Lat Dior sought refuge with the king of Sine. The king of Sine granted him asylum. The Damultain asked the king of Sine to loan him some of his forces so he could fight against the French and regain his throne. The king of Sine refused to do that because he was already engaged in a long battle against the French himself in regards to the sovereignty of Joel, one of his provinces. The Damultain Lat Dior Ngone, acute latter, sought the assistance of Maba. Maba promised to help Damultain Lat Dior Ngone, acute latter, regain his throne if he converts to Islam. Damultain Lat Dior Ngone, acute latter, converted, and in 1867, he proposed to Maba to launch a jihad in Sine. The Marabouts surprised the Serer people of Mbinongor, a small Serer village in the Sine. In the Serer Sine language, the incident is referred to as Mbinongor. In the Wolof language, it is referred to as Mabitan Kur Ngor. Mabitan means surprise in Wolof. Although the Serers managed to drive back the Muslim Marabout forces, stopping him from conquering their country, the Marabouts' attack caused significant damage before they were finally forced to retreat. Some prominent Serer princesses such as Lingia Selber and Thiouthiogne Diouf was abducted and forcefully married off to Abdoulaye Oulimata Ba, Mabadiak How's brother. The princess Lingia Fatma Choub was also abducted along with Lingia Selber and Thiouthiogne and held prisoners by the Marabout forces. Some prominent Serer personalities and princes such as Boukari Noer Diouf, who was a relative and counsel of the king of Sine, was killed in that attack. After this incident, the Serer king of Sine, Maada Senegal and Thiouthiogne Diouf, sent a letter to the leader of the Muslim Marabouts inviting him to an open battle. In that letter, he wrote, "This attack is undignified. If you are a man, I challenge you to come back and meet the full army of Sine in open battle." Fandane-Thiouthioune. After Maada Senegal and Thiouthiogne invitation to Maba to an open battle following the surprise of Mbinongor, Maba and his army went to the Sine, having acquired arms and ammunition in British Gambia. On 18 July 1867, the Watchers notified the king of Sine that the Rip army is approaching Sine. The rituals according to Serer oral tradition, before Maada Senegal and Thiouthiogne and his army made their way to the battlefield, he summoned the elders to perform the ancient rituals of their forefathers. He then commanded his Jaraf, also a Saltig, Wassaili Seen, to perform the ritual of the ancestors and predict the outcome. Wassaili Seen is reported to have cited the name of Rug, raised his spear to the gods of the heavens and struck it to the ground. He then cried out, "Victory!" During the battle, Mabadiak Helbar is said to have recited the Shahada from the Quran. The army's Maada Senegal and Thiouthiogne Diouf's army, composed of the Boumi Somb, the Great Jaraf, and his army from the south, Maad Pataran, his army from the northeast, the Sandi Gendi Iob from the north, Maad Amid Noer Diouf, Macorijan Noer Diouf, the Great Faber, as well as the Army of Sign, covering the west and northwest, Maad Saloum Sadio Uka Mbodj, etc. The Griot beat Junjung of Sign, a call for arms. Mabadiak Helbar was accompanied by his brothers Usman Bar and Abdollah Uli Bar, the king of Cayor, and Baol Damultain Lat Dior Ngone Acute Latter Diop, the king of Jolif. Orba Jolif Albrisainabau Njie, Gumbo Gay, also spelt Gumbo Guy, Buran Sisi, his generals such as Mama Jalo Nyang and Tafsir Saloli, Jabal Samba, etc. The battle, the Sign army having performed the required rituals according to Sira custom, Maada Senecumber and Dofina Famik Diouf led his army to Somb, the battlefield. Sira tradition states that Somb was the starting point of the battle, but it did not end there. It ended in Fandane-Thiouthioune, where the outcome was decided. Muslim tradition agrees pretty much with this account. On the day of the battle, there was a heavy rain. Maad Samorgallo Diouf with his cousin Mabane Somb Faye and their griots led an offensive attack on the Muslim Marabout forces. The Sira strategy was to push the Muslim Marabout forces into Somb, where a strong resistance had been prepared, and to prevent them from entering Thiouthioune. The strategy failed. Maba and his army successfully entered Thiouthioune. However, at Thiouthioune, Maba's army faced a strong resistance by some of the retinue forces of King Ahmed Noer of Thiouthioune, which included Maad Samorgallo Diouf and the princes Niba Dior Diouf, Madiolat Jige and Biram Diouf. The battle took place between Somb and Thiouthioune and lasted 3/4 of the morning. In the early stages of the battle, the Muslim Marabouts prevailed. The princes and Maad Samorgallo Diouf were killed. The Prince Mabane Somb Faye committed suicide when he was captured by the Muslim Marabouts. Around 12 p.m., it started to rain. Maba and his army took refuge in the coppices which surrounded the pond of Fandane and attempted to dry off their arms. Around that time, Maad Kumba and Dofina Famik had left Ndofina Nomad with his army and moving towards Fandane to defend it. Before his arrival, Damultain Lat Dior Noel Latter and Boalba Jolif Albrisainabau contemplated withdrawing from the battle at around 2 p.m. Damultain Lat Dior reported to Maba that he had heard the sound of signs Junjung approaching, and Maad Kumba and Dofina Famik is bound to be among them. He tried to discuss an exit strategy because the Sign army would be too strong for them. Maba was not interested in an exit strategy. His mission was to Islamize and conquer Sira Sign. When Maad Kumba and Dofina Famik and his army, accompanied by the king of Patar, the king of Poukham and the Sandi Gendi Iob, arrived on the scene, they interposed between the Muslim Marabout forces and the kingdom of Saloum, locking the Marabouts in Sign and cutting off their exit route into Nioro Durip via Saloum. Damultain Lat Dior Ngone Acute Latter and Boalba Jolif Albrisainabau Njie, realizing that the cause has been lost, abandoned Maba in the battlefield. They fought their way out of the battlefield. The Damultain escaped and headed towards Cayor and the Boalba Jolif towards Gosses. The Sira army defeated the Muslim Marabouts. Maba was killed at Fandane and so was the Sira prince Macorijan Noer Diouf, whom according to some was responsible for killing Maba. The king of Sign was injured. Many of Maba's men fell at Fandane-Thiouthioune. His generals such as Mama Jalo Nyang were held prisoners. Mama Jalo was released 2 days after the battle to go and relay the incident in his country. After Maba had been killed, Maad Kumba and Dofina Famik had his head cut off and his limbs dismembered. He then sent an arm and the head, with a letter to the French commandant at Gorée to announce his victory. The remains of Maba's body were scattered in several parts of Sign, including Fella, Sambatuda, Ndilge and towards Thioumasses. According to some scholars such as Diegner, Becker, Kate-Juif, Klein, etc., Maad Coumba Ndoffena Famic's letter and action was a threat to the French administration in Senegal, especially his succeeding letter sent to the French governor, which listed the prominent members of Maba's army that had fallen in the Seine. The French administration in Senegal under the governorship of Émile Pinette Laprade kept out of the battle. They armed neither side nor did they involve their forces. The French also had limited ammunition and forces. Although Laprade tried to gain more arms and French forces from France for the protection of French interest in the colony, the French government in Paris refused to sanction it and decided to devote all French resources in France due to the crisis in Europe and their ultimate defeat in the Franco-Prussian War. As such, Laprade was ordered to stay on the defensive, and told he would not even receive white troops to replace those who have died from disease. Abdoulaye Ouliba was not killed in the battle. In a revenge attack, he was castrated for participating in the surprise of Mbinongor, the kidnapping of Linguius Elbert Ndoffena Diouf, forcefully marrying her and making her pregnant. Although released, he went missing for some time. People thought that he had died like his two brothers at the battle. He resurfaced by January 1868 during the raidings of the Mandinka principalities of Niani and Uli, in the Gambia. Victory anthem of Seine. At the end of the battle, the victorious king of Seine, Coumba Ndoffena Famic, nursed his injuries and led his army back home. The griots of Seine beat the Junjung and chanted the following hymn in his honor. Coumba Ndoffena crushed their rebellion. Maba Diakhou, leader of the insurgent, will be wiped out with his troops and buried without pomp in the heart of Seine. Pathé Diagne. Controversy. Senegal's Ministry of Culture states that Maba was buried in Battle of Fandane, the mausoleum which is venerated by people in honor of Maba. Sera Seine's oral tradition refute this. According to the Seras of Seine, after Maba was killed, he was dismembered and his body parts scattered in various parts of the country. An arm and the head were sent to the French commandant at Gorée, accompanied by a letter from Maada Senegal Coumba Ndoffena Famic Diouf. The tradition went on to state that the mausoleum that is venerated is that of Makoroja Noé Diouf and not that of Maba Diakhou. It was Makoroja Noé who was buried there, not Maba, according to Kate-Juif, in a letter marked 31 July 1867 deposited at the National Archives of Senegal. The French replied to Maad Coumba Ndoffena Famic's previous letter in which they asked